to the part that I told you about that this was leading towards. Graphing the inequalities. So, previous two chapters, remember what we did?
No, we graphed.
You don't remember? We graphed linear equations. Graphing inequalities is almost identical to that, except once you draw your line on there, you either draw a dotted line or a solid line, and then you shade one side or the other. So that's really only that's added when we do inequalities. Okay? The solution of a linear equality is everything that's on the shaded part of your graph. Because remember, at inequalities, there's not just one answer, right? If x is greater than 2, it's 2.1, it's 3, it's 100, it's whatever, it's infinite, right? So when we have a graph, you're going to shade one side or the other, and every point on that shaded part is a solution. So they call that a half plane. Like if we drew a graph like this, and our line was like that, and it was shaded above, that cuts this plane basically into two parts. And obviously a plane goes on and on forever in each direction, right? So they just call that half the plane. So if you had to guess, why would I put a dotted line when I'm graphing an inequality?
Is it and?
Not quite. It's what?
Many solutions.
No, because the solutions are everything on the shaded part. So if I had a line like this, solid, everything below is shaded, it includes it. Exactly. If it's solid, it includes it. If it's dotted, it doesn't include the line. So what kind of inequality would this be?
It wouldn't be an and. It wouldn't have
No,
an and.
no,
It wouldn't be equal to.
it wouldn't have the equal. This one would be a greater than because everything above the line is shaded. This one would be a less than or equal to because it's solid, and everything below it less than is shaded. That make sense? Okay, so we'll get to those, but the first part is just checking to see if something is a solution. So here's the inequality, and they got the point 0, 0. Remember, it's an ordered pair, x, y. So what kind of answer do you put when it says check whether or not something is? Yes or no. So we just got to put 0 in for x and 0 in for y and see if it's true. 8 times 0 is 0, minus 4 times 0 is 0. Is that greater than or equal to 3? No. So here we've got x is 1 and y is negative 1. 8 times 1 is 8. Take away. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Yes, because what's 8 take away negative 4? 12. Change the sign, change the sign. So, those are simple, right? Okay, good. Now the graphing. You graph the corresponding equation. If it was like this, y is greater than 3x minus 2. You treat it like it's y equals, and you graph it the same way. So what's the first point you put on there? Negative 2 is the y-intercept. Then from there we do up 3 over 1. Now this is the, again, it's easy to forget this. You got to either put a solid or a dotted line. Dotted because it doesn't include it. So that's the first thing that's different. And then the second thing is you got to shade one side. So what you got to do is look at the sign. Y is greater than. Now, the y is greater than, right? Which axis is the y? Up and down. So the easiest thing to do is this, when you're trying to figure out where it's shaded, go to where the y-intercept. If y is greater, you would go. This is a number line, remember, this is 1, that's 2, this is 3, -1, -2. Up. Everything above this is greater than everything below, right? So since it's greater, you go up, which means that's the part that's shaded. So what that means is any point that you pick, left 2 and up 1, -2, 1, is a solution. Any point that's on that shaded part, but it doesn't include the points on the line. See, if I check this, if I put -2 in for x and 1 in for y, and y is greater than 3 times -2 is -6, take away 2 is -8, which is true, right? So I know that's a solution, so I know I got shaded on the right side. If I pick the point over here, 3 over 1 up, and I plug that in there, so if I put 3 in for x and 1 in for y, I'd get 1 is greater than 3 times 3 is 9, take away 2 is 7. 1 is not greater than 7. And it's not on the shaded part, so that's not a solution. So that's what the steps are. You draw or graph the corresponding equation, use a dotted line for greater than or less than to show the points on the line is not a solution. Use a solid line if it's greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. The line drawn separates the coordinate plane into 2 halves. Here it says test a point on 1 half to find whether it's a solution. But the easiest way to do is what I showed you. You know, go to the y-intercept. If it's greater, you shade above. If it's less, you shade below. And then you just shade that side. Now, today we're just doing the simple one step inequalities. We won't have any of the multi-step. So here, these are already solved. So we got a graph, y is less than 4. Remember how to graph y equals 4?
Yes.
You go to the y-axis and you put a line through it at 4. But the difference is now it's not a solid line, it is a dotted. So it's just a dotted line. And we got to shade one side or the other. Y is less than 4, so you got to do all the y's that are less than 4, which is everything below it. Okay? X is greater than or equal to 1. If it was x equals 1, you'd go to the x-axis at 1 and draw a line. This is solid. Yep, x is greater. So now we're talking about the x's. Here we're talking about the y's. But when it's just an x, all the x's greater than 1 are on this side. So you shade that side. Okay? So if it's just an x, you're going to shade one side or the other. But if it's a y, it's going to be above or below. So here's one where we got to solve it before we graph it.
5, -2,
divide by -2.
And switch the sign.
Since you're dividing by a negative, right, you gotta remember to switch the sign. So it's y is greater than -4. So that would be a straight line through -4 on the y-axis, dotted. Y is greater than, so it's everything above. Okay? All of them today are just gonna be a horizontal line or a vertical line. And then tomorrow, we're gonna do the ones, the y equals mx plus b, like we have in the past. So if it was like this, okay, 15 is less than 2x. Divide by 2, and that's 7.5. So on the x-axis, it's at 7.5. It doesn't have the equal, so you put a dotted line through it. And which side do you shade?
To the right.
X is greater, yeah, remember this is written backwards, so always read the letter first. X is greater, so that's everything to the right. These are really easy to check because if I put 1 in here, 7.5 isn't less than 1, so I know it's not shaded this way. Okay, so if it's just an X, it'll be a vertical line because it crosses the x-axis. If it's just a Y, it's a horizontal line. Ever remember these?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you graph paper.
Can I?
Yeah, you can.